Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. I'm your host Leo, and this week we are talking about The Planet of the Apes, the original movie from 1968. Now, it is based off of a book, so I will at some point need to get and talk about the book, but I currently do not have, nor have read, the book, so that'll have to wait. Yeah, I didn't think about it until I literally just started watching the movie, and I was like, wait a second, isn't this based off of a book? And as the credits were rolling, it popped up saying that it was. I was like, oh, right. And the person who wrote the book also wrote the book on The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which is another movie that I have watched and actually didn't know was based off of a book. So, hey, although I think I did know a little bit that Planet of the Apes was based off of a book, I just forgot. It's been so long since I watched anything to do with Planet of the Apes that, yeah. But anyway, before we get into Planet of the Apes, I do have news. Whether or not this will still be relevant news next week, who knows? We will find out, but it is news nonetheless. Just like last year around this time, I stated I will be going on an adventure. Well, I'm going on another adventure. So I potentially have another job. I will be finding out on Wednesday, so in the next episode of Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy, I will update you all on whether or not, well, things will be changing. If I do have the job, I'm going to try my damnedest to keep things relatively stable. Things that will definitely not really be able to be happening, at least not as fast, would be things like Star Trek, though I could try. I'd have to pre-download episodes, but I can try. Because this job is going to be different than the others. See, the last job I took, I was put up in a hotel and whatnot, and I could use hotel Wi-Fi to do stuff. And as it was for the last one, I was able to store up enough episodes to cover the entire time I was gone. And the entire time I was gone, I was able to work on the book that I was going to do afterwards. So it worked out pretty nicely. This time, though, it's potentially an indefinite job that it'll just keep going. 8 days on, 6 days off, repeat the pattern indefinitely. So, yeah, it's going to change some things. It's going to change some things. So we need to figure out what's going to be happening. My best idea that I can think of right now is I pre-record as many as I can beforehand, depending on if I get the job. And then episodes will go pretty smoothly up until a certain point, and I can take the time where I'm off to try and record more. Or I could even try to record some in the field, but it's going to be kind of hard. I do plan on potentially doing some field updates on YouTube Shorts, because, I might as well try to make something. Whether or not I'll actually be able to upload them is a different issue entirely, but it's something that I'll figure out along the way. Now, as for the challenge, I'm still wrestling with what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. I'm testing out some things currently, but the way it's looking so far is that I will just have to expand my definition of what qualifies as a game for the challenge. Currently, it is only PS5/PS4 games on my PlayStation. But I could expand the definition to include my Steam Deck and my PS Vita, and that would help keep me going while I'm mobile. And yeah, it's a complicated issue at the moment on what's happening and how is it going to work. But currently, it's looking like things are possibly going to be changing a bit. And overall, it's a pretty good thing. Stable income would be nice. So, yes. I will know more on Wednesday. And I'll hold off doing the next episode, because originally I was planning on doing this episode and the next episode back to back, so I would have episodes there regardless. Because I didn't know how fast things were going to move. But now I have a general idea of how fast they could or could not move. So, yes, I'll wait until Wednesday to update you guys when I do the next episode. What that next episode is, I don't know. As it is, I had trouble figuring out what this episode was going to be. Initially, it was going to be Star Trek Season 1, but I decided to delay that because I was not going to be able to watch all those fucking episodes in that short amount of time. Then I was going to do Rebel Moon, and in the first 25 minutes, I was just like, God, this sucks, so I stopped watching it. I might try to tackle it again sometime in the future, or I might try and wait until the director's cut, because for some reason, even though this is supposed to be his Star Wars that he couldn't make with Disney, but Netflix gave him all the money in the world so that he could do it his way, still he ended up having to edit it down to a PG-13 for some reason. So R-rated director's cut that's probably going to be like 6 hours long. It's something weird about that as well. So I looked it up, and the director's cut versions of these films have different fucking names for some reason. I'm so confused. Anywho, leaving Rebel Moon off to the side, we'll just put that in the bin where it belongs for now. Yeah, so then I decided, I could do Planet of the Apes. And thus, I decided to do Planet of the Apes. And here we are. So, my history with Planet of the Apes is minimal. Like, of course, I know about the twist. It's one of the most famous twists and whatnot. It is something that I mostly knew through pop culture. You know, it's one of the most famous sci-fi movies ever. It spawned a bajillion sequels, and it has a really successful long-running prequel series that's been going on for quite a while now. In fact, the newest one released, a month or two ago? Like, very recently. And overall, most of the Planet of the Apes movies, well, the old ones, supposedly, like, after the first one, they get quite bad. But the new ones are actually quite good. So, I don't know. I'll have to wait and see, as currently I am knee-deep in just normal Planet of the Apes. Anywho, so yes, my overall history is relatively minimal. I didn't know a whole lot of the actual story, and to be fair, most of the actual story is what you get on the cover, you know? It's a planet of apes. Now, the whole thing is trying to kind of lead you in a direction. Well, it's basically, the entire movie is preparing you for the twist, if that makes sense. You sit there for a good chunk of time as the movie is building you up slowly. It gives you all the groundwork for the twist, and then it gives you the twist of it was Earth all along. So what happens is, at the beginning of the film, we open with Charlton Heston doing his Stardate log, like his captain's log, into the fucking computer or whatever, and he pretty much lays out what's going on. They are on a 6-month trip. It's supposed to be just a 6-month there and back kind of trip, or at least that's what it's implying, but then later on they say that they were supposed to, like, colonize a planet, ? I don't know, but it was supposed to be a 6-month trip, and he's keeping an eye on how long it's been since they left. So there's their current time, which is like 1970 something, and then there's the Earth time, which is like thousands of years in the future, kind of thing. Now, this is a very common, like, sci-fi thing, and I'm surprised we don't see a whole lot more of it, to be honest. But basically, it's based off of a scientific theory that as you go farther out in space, away from, like, the closer you travel to the speed of light, the more time dilation you tend to experience. So a minute for you is like an hour or a day back on Earth. And that tends to happen also as you get farther away, and when you come back, it'll be thousands of years later. It's the only theorized realistic form of time travel that has been kind of discussed. You know, you can only go forward in time, not back. But you can, of course, skip forward in time if you use a spaceship, for example. So, yes. the idea of this trip, like the overall mission, is kind of unclear. They suggest that it's supposed to be like Eve and her 3 atoms, I guess, because the crew consists of 4 people. Taylor, Charlton Heston's character, 2 other guys, which I can't quite remember their names. It's stated a couple times, but I can't remember. I think one of them's like Lambert or something like that. And then Stewart, which is the woman. Now, when they crash on the planet, Stewart is dead. She's been dead for quite a while. There was some kind of air leak in her chamber, and she suffocated in her sleep and just died. She was mummified for, according to Charlton Heston's character, at least a year. But yeah, she's like mummified. The guys get out of the ship as it's sinking because it landed in some water. They go ashore, and their guess is that they're light years away from Earth in another solar system completely, and they got to start looking for life, or else they're going to die. So off they trek through the wasteland in order to try and find evidence of life. They journey and journey and journey, while him and I believe Lambert, ? Have a conversation about why they signed up. His excuse, the excuse that potentially Lambert, that's the only other name I remember. Anywho, his excuse for being there is kind of fame and glory, even though everyone that they know is dead. Though he doesn't fully believe that is actually what happened. It's still a theory until they return, but they're probably not going to return, kind of thing. But his whole thing's fame and glory. Charlton Heston's character's there's statues of us, but they're long rusted, and the nameplate is probably illegible. But immortality, my friend, you're there. Then, as they're walking, the more science-oriented guy, so his reason for being there was fame and glory. Charlton Heston's character is there because he is hopeful that there's something better than humanity out there, because humanity does nothing but war with itself and, just cause harm to each other. And then the other guy is there because he just really wants to discover new things. But anyway, he sees that there's the scientist-oriented one. He finds some plants, and they're like, hey, where there's one plant, there's many plants. So they keep marching along until eventually they do come across a jungle. And in this jungle, they strip down to nothing and go skinny dipping, because they found a waterfall and a pool. So they go skinny dipping together. And oops, they found more than just plants, because some other people stole their clothes and their supplies. So they have to go trekking through the woods naked, following the trail of torn up supplies. I think 2 of them are able to recover pants, and another one has to make a poncho for himself. But they discover these people, and while they're watching these people gathering and eating corn, they're snacking as well, just watching the happenings. And then, a sound off in the forest, and the hunt is on. There's a massive chase and kind of stampede of people as apes on horseback come and attack them and start rounding people up. The science-oriented guy gets killed. He gets kind of shot through the neck and died. Kind of shot in the back of the neck, probably through the spinal cord, and he dies. The other one, he falls off of a cliff and bangs his head, but he survives, the one that's there for fame and glory. And then Charlton Heston, he gets shot in the neck, but it just kind of knocks out his voice, and they all get gathered up and taken back to the Apes town, where Charlton Heston's character, Taylor, he gets bandaged up, but he can't speak. So he's trying his best to communicate with the scientist apes. Hey, I can speak, and he keeps trying to reach for like a notepad so he can write, but they're able to kind of brush him off. He tries writing in the sand. They pair him up with a woman that they had captured around the same time. She just kind of hangs out. Sorry if you hear like banging and whatnot in the background. It's near the 4th of July, so sadly around this time, idiots come out and just start shooting off fireworks all day, every day. It's annoying. Anyway, he just kind of hangs out with her, but he tries to write, but she starts like cleaning it away, and he like pulls her away, ends up getting into a big fight, and gets pulled away. And that's when he's able to get close enough to the ape scientist lady, the animal behavioral scientist, and he gets her notepad and is able to write a quick thing saying, "I am Taylor," or "My name is Taylor." And when he gets beaten and it's returned to her, she sees that he's able to write. So she takes him away and starts having him like write everything down for her. And he explains that at least he believes, he's from another planet and whatnot. His ship crashed and everything, and he doesn't know what's going on fully. So from this point on, it's Cornelius, I think, and I can't remember the names. I'm sorry. Cornelius is the anthropology guy. He is the animal behavioralist's like husband or fiance, boyfriend. They seem to try to hide their PDA, but like terribly. So, like, I don't know what's going on there, because they look from side to side, then they share a quick kiss, but otherwise, yeah. Anyway, so they are trying to, like, Cornelius is like not having it. He doesn't really fully understand. He's trying to push her away from this theory and whatnot, that because his theory is that like they evolved potentially from man to human, or to ape, and thus, or intelligent ape, and thus evolution, but that's heresy, etc. But yeah, so he, after the fight, is kind of condemned to a lobotomy, essentially, and he decides to make a break for it. He tries to run from the facility, and it's a big chase scene and whatnot, but he ends up getting captured, and this is around the time that his neck is healed, and he cries out, the famous line, "Keep your hands off me, you damn dirty ape." And he's recaptured and then put on trial, or at least there's a hearing made where the doctors are able to try and pitch their theory and whatnot. And it's a court scene. We'll leave it at that. But because of this, it's very obvious. Is Cornelius? I'm trying to think. If Cornelius is either the archaeology one, or he's one of the guy that's trying to get him killed. Again, I'm having trouble with the names. I literally just watched the movie too, so it's funny. 'Cause I think part of the problem is, like, in my mind, I keep having like Caesar. Isn't Caesar supposed to be the main guy? No, he's not. Oh well. Anywho, yes. So he's essentially condemned to death, though he's given like a way out to confess where his tribe is, because they do not believe that he came from space. They believe that he, if anything, comes from a tribe beyond the forbidden zone. But, Taylor is adamant that that is not where he came from. But he's given 6 hours to make a decision. In that time, the doctors and her nephew decide to break him out. He insists on taking his lady friend with him, and they make their escape. Now, they decide to go to the dig site where the archaeologist guy had discovered potential evidence of a intelligent simian or man civilization. So they go, but they're cut off, or well, at the cave they're caught by the others, and they take the guy hostage and show him the evidence. But it's revealed that he pretty much knew this already, as in their scrolls, which I guess one of them is secret. In the scroll, it describes that men tend to end up killing each other and war and whatnot, so they're to not let them, grow beyond certain amounts in population and to keep them away. In the end, they decide to let Charlton Heston, or Taylor, and the woman go, where he is to find out the truth, as the main bad guy obviously already knows that Taylor is from Earth, or at the very least he suspects it. And he lets them go, and of course they just they blow up the evidence and move on, and the two scientists are to be tried for heresy, but luckily not, I guess, for treason, so that's a plus. They'll get a maximum of 2 years, is what he said. And off Charlton Heston goes. He finds the Statue of Liberty, falls to his knees on the beach, and says, famous line, "Damn it." And that literally, it fades to credits at that point. I don't know if we find out what specifically happens to his character. I don't know. I have yet to watch the other movies, but I think that literally his character just kind of whoosh just disappears, or maybe gets recast. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into it at some point. Now, the special effects and whatnot, pretty cool. The spaceship's pretty cool. I mean, it has like the interior is just white soundproofing foam, which is funny. The mission's a little bit like what they're doing, I can't fully understand. But overall, yeah, the makeup is probably the highlight. The evolved monkey makeup. It's really good, except for the fact that near the end of the movie, primarily, for the most part of the film, it works perfectly fine, except for sometimes when they talk, the mouth barely moves. Or near the end of the film, when they're a lot more expressive and whatnot, you can kind of more see where the bits are stuck on to the actors' faces, and you can see their mouth inside their mouth, which is a little bit disorienting, but it is really good, and overall I enjoyed the film. While it can kind of feel a little bit slow at times, it's able to keep the action and the suspense up just enough to keep you intrigued the entire film. So, yeah, overall, I like it. It's pretty good. But yeah, I think that's it. And looking at the Wikipedia now, I see that the astronauts' names are Taylor, Landon, and Dodge. So I was completely wrong on anyone else's name. It's funny. So some funny bits that happen in the original Planet of the Apes are just kind of the time movie things, or adventure movie things. So firstly, when the movie opens up and Charlton Heston is giving his captain's log and whatnot to the ship, he's smoking a cigar just in the ship, which I find very funny. Not only that, he then takes the cigar and sets it down on a shelf before eventually resuming smoking it, and then when he goes to go to bed, he sticks it in his pocket. I found that very funny. There's also the, I guess you could call it, love at first sight thing that happens in a lot of these movies, where he is looking at the crowd of people and he spots Nova, And it's just one of those things is like, ah, man, everyone around you looks like garbage, but God, you're the one hot one. It's the same thing that happened in a Star Trek episode. I'll talk about it at some point. But, yeah. Oh, thunder. Lovely, isn't it? I love thunder. But yeah, it's the same thing that happened in a lot of things from that era, where the dashing captain of a spaceship sees a young, beautiful person on the planet, and it's just instant, they're probably going to bone at some point, thing. It's a bit silly, but yeah. And just for some clarity, I did do a little bit of research now. I took a little bit of a break, did some research. I decided I wanted to add some more to the episode because it was going to be very short otherwise. And I did some research, and he is in the sequel, but not much of the sequel, and it doesn't focus too much on the apes part of the Planet of the Apes. It's more on an underground race of humans, but we'll talk about that more when we eventually get to the sequels of Planet of the Apes. It's going to be a very interesting time when we do get through that, because after that, the story just goes way away. I found it interesting that the apes have, like, pressurized hoses. That's interesting. It seems to be one of the only, like, major technological advances that they have is, like, super pressurized, like, fire hose level hoses. Because otherwise they're living in, like, stone buildings. And I'm talking, like, carved out of cave, like, stone buildings. And weird looking metal bars. That's for sure. Oh, and guns. They also have guns. That's their other major technological advance. Guns. There's a moment where one of the gorilla guards is just smoking a cigar. Very funny image. It was beautiful. Then the leader guy, the one that gives Charlton Heston's character the ultimatum of confess or essentially die. He's like smoking on one of those, like, old-timey long cigarettes, like where you stick the cigarette in the end and smoke from a distance kind of thing. Very weird, but yeah, just some funny images going on there. There's also a part where when Charlton Heston's character escapes and he's wandering around, he crashes a funeral, and he's, like, sneaking around, and a kid comes out, and he's like, oh my god, it's a guy. And he, like, pushes the kid out of the way and books it. And he ends up jumping over the casket of the dead guy to try to escape. Then the hose, again, very funny image, because he's trying to talk while getting blasted with a hose, and he just is having such a hard time with it. It's quite funny. But other than that, I think that's all of the kind of interesting, fun, weird things that happened in the original Planet of the Apes. Overall, yeah, I liked it. I will definitely be looking into the sequels and the prequels. I'm very much looking forward to the prequels because, like, the newest one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, looks really good. And I would really like to watch it, but I want to watch all the other ones first, so I have a full understanding of what's going on in the Planet of the Apes averse, I guess. But yes. As for what's going to happen next week, I don't fully know. I still have to wait until Wednesday to even think about recording the episode anyway, so I might as well wait until then to, pick something to watch. But yeah, I might read a book, actually. Who knows? Let's live on the edge a little bit. But I will indeed be keeping you guys up to date on what's happening. Like, currently I don't fully know if I get this job, there's a very good chance that a lot of things will be happening very fast, and it's going to be a bit of a whirlwind, but we'll figure out what's going on as time goes on. There is a non-zero chance, though, that the challenge will have to be indefinitely postponed. I don't want it to come to that, but there is a chance of it. The biggest issue being I don't know if I have enough games on my Steam Deck to survive that long, or enough energy in order to do it. We'll figure it out. Don't you worry. We'll figure something out. In the meantime, though, we just have to wait. Anywho, with that said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys liked this, feel free to give it a like, comment, and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or if you are listening on any podcast catcher of your choice, feel free to rate and review it and share it with your friends. Once again, though, thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you guys next week. Goodbye.